I guess the other thing that I kind of work on, they call me the VR dude at Unity. I guess you can make up whatever title you want, and that one sounded pretty cool to me, so I went for that one. But we have a team of developers based out of Boston. They're actually in Lowell, Massachusetts, and they're working on a lot of the VR integration work right now. They're doing the integration for the Oculus stuff and the Gear VR as well, and more headsets as time permits and as the resources are allocated for it. They are actually hiring as well. They've got an ad right now out for a VR software engineer. So if you or anyone in the area knows stuff and wants to be involved, you should check that out. Look on unity3d.com/jobs, and you'll see a lot of job listings. We're actually hiring a lot more people this year. We're going through another round of growth right now. So that's a good page to watch if you are interested. But as far as the VR stuff, in a way, we have that team in Boston, but we're also kind of loosely organized. So there's people in different parts of the world that have kind of different specialties. And in a way, I'm somewhere in between a field engineer, which means I go on site and work with companies, learn from them, see what they're doing, see what we can do to improve, but also help them get through projects, write code at times, give a lot of advice on always lighting. Always people want to know about lighting and shadows and how to make that work better. So there's a lot of talk about that, especially with the Enlighten stuff recently and the GI system that we have now. But I also get to be a little bit of a VR evangelist as well. So I go and do speaking events. I guess in a way, this is a speaking event. It's much more loose than I normally do. But I also do presentations. So I was at SDVR last week. Actually, the last couple of weeks is a really good life of Pete in a nutshell. I went to Austin for the room scale VR game jam that happened. Valve and HTC put it on, and I went out to support all the Unity users and kind of see what was going on. So I spent the weekend in Austin. Came back to the office for a few days. Got a lot of work done on some of the demo team projects that I'm working on, and then left town again and went to SVVR, where I spoke about the kind of current state of what's going on with Unity and hopefully future direction, and just kind of give an update talk on that. We wound up sponsoring it, so they wanted someone to go and talk. So I often get called on for events like that because for whatever reason I'm crazy enough to stand up on stage and run my mouth for a while and share what I know, what little I know anyway. But I guess with that, if you guys have any questions, then we should move into a bit of a Q&A area. I'll go ahead and release the spacebar for a moment, let you guys talk.
Yeah, anybody got any questions? I got a few, but I'll let you guys ask one first if you got any. This is the point where everyone looks around at each other.
Oh, like how I got hired and that process?
Yeah. Like what for us?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. So I spent a long time in academia studying many things. I kind of wanted to be a professor for a long time, so it's a great way to stick around and take all the classes. And I pretty much took all the classes. I studied many things. DSP, so digital signal processing for audio, was a big part of it. My background's heavily in audio, and actually all my degrees are in music and music composition. Not your standard software engineer by a long shot. I almost finished a PhD. That's actually why I moved to Seattle. I kind of got disillusioned by the idea of being a professor after a while and was really doing a lot of stuff in software, so made the move out of academia. But along the way, I studied DSP, I studied a lot of math, a lot of linear algebra and stuff like that, a lot of computer vision, some speech analysis and things like that. Just the kind of things that interested me that I could take advanced classes on. And I just sought it out. I just wanted to try different things. it's interesting because I had been programming my whole life. I started when I was 15. I'm 39 now. My my grandmother gave me an old Apple IIe, and it had a basic
Whoa.
interpreter, and I just somehow learned to program it. Honestly, I thinking back now, I'm not sure how I knew what to do. I just kind of made it work slowly. I didn't even have a disk drive, so I wrote out all of my basic programs on a legal pad, like a big yellow pad, which meant every time I turned the computer off, I'd have to type in my programs again. Looking
Brutal.
back now, I mean, you just think like, oh, there was a better way. Why didn't I do it? But you did what you did, and you didn't really know back then. This kind of knowledge of computers was not nearly as widespread in the public as it is now. I got a 6-year-old kid now, and he can do things on the iPad that blow me away. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he knows it because he can barely read. So I had a very diverse background. Is the short story, the short version of it, and I worked when I got out of academia. I went into a company working on basically military and industrial contracts, and they needed someone who was an expert in computer vision, and I kind of happened to be a guy that was an expert in computer vision. So I built a lot of tracking systems. I built surveillance systems that were used in hot, dusty climates overseas, if you get my meaning. And basically, I come from a military background myself and my family. I mean, I haven't ever been in the military, but pretty much the rest of my family was. And the idea of keeping those guys safe, most of my family was over in Iraq and Afghanistan. So the idea of keeping them safe was something I wanted to get behind, and I had some skills that I could apply. Unfortunately, military contracts, well, they go awry, and they want you to start blowing shit up, and I didn't really want to do that. So I left that job. We got bought. I kind of cashed out, as it were, and decided to go do something else. And so what I did is I got into serious games, which meant I got to start playing in VR a lot more. I got to play with 3D, and I got to use serious games for health reasons. I worked on a thing called Snow World briefly, a thing called Iraq World, at this company called Firsthand, and actually you guys might know them now as Deep Stream VR. They're part of the River initiative. So if you've seen the stuff sitting at their table, I actually wrote the first version of that stuff, a lot of it. They're really cool guys, Howard and Ari. I don't know if they're in the room now. I haven't seen them, but yeah. So I used to work for them in Seattle, and that was really good for quite a while. I also worked in along the way in a bunch of casual gaming as well. Back in the day, I was a Palm Pilot programmer for a long time and did pretty well in
Nice.
shareware. So I was really excited by the new wave of mobile, and I wanted to push ahead because there's so much that we could do on the Palm Pilot, but at the same time, there was so much more that we wanted to do. And for the first time, everyone had a supercomputer in their pocket, and it had really good graphics, and you could do a bunch of stuff. So I've done a ton of contract work for mobile as well along the way. So I don't know. I've had a very diverse background, and I was kind of tired of a casual gaming job I was at that I'd been at for a year. I saw an ad for Unity in the local Unity user group. They put out a call for a job, and they had a kind of a field engineering position for simulation and visualization, which pretty much played into all my skills in a way that no other job ever had. And so what I did is I sent them a resume. They sent me an email an hour later and said, "Can you come in tomorrow?" So I came in tomorrow, and you would think that it happened actually really quick after that, but no, it took a freaking long time. I didn't even think I had the job for a while. It took like over a month to get it sorted out because Unity is kind of terrible about that sort of thing. So if you do go through the hiring process, just know and understand that we're really, really slow, especially about stuff like that. Way too slow. But it's been a really great job so far working in the company. It's the, I guess, smartest group of people and the coolest group of people I've ever worked with worldwide. I have a reason easily to travel to one of 18 different cities just because we have an office there. They pretty much let me do whatever I want, which is pretty cool. Got to say, it's pretty cool. And in a way, I mean, that's one of the strengths of the company is everyone's expected to be a badass as much as they can, and they hire badasses for the most part. But it sure would be nice if we were a little better coordinated at times. The fact that we are all over the world, and the way that we communicate is often through Skype, which means if I wake up, I'm on the West Coast, I can safely talk to people in Montreal. I can talk to people in Austin, but I can't easily find people in Copenhagen because some of them have already left work and some are about to leave work. If I wait long enough in the day, I can talk to Hong Kong. So real-time communication is problematic, but then if you don't have that, you have a massive amount of emails. So we're also famously bad about replying to emails. I apologize in advance. I hear I'm one of the best, and I feel like I'm terrible at it. So some people don't even reply to me in the company. So just understand that going in. For all the stuff that we do, there's a lot of stuff that we don't do as well. But it's a pretty cool place to work. That's a very long-winded answer, but I hope it answers.
Yeah. So you said Snow World and Iraq World. Was the Snow World the one, the kind of the pain management tool?
Yeah. So Snow World, the goal there, it's part of a research project, was to turn and face you a little bit. The idea was that burn patients, they have burns like over massive percentages of the body, like 80%. They're going to be in pain for the rest of their life. They take a lot of opiates, they take a lot of medication. Their life is severely degraded because of all the drugs that they're on. So one of the ideas is, can you, in a way, distract them from feeling all the pain? Can you take away the pain without adding more drugs? And it turns out you can, and VR is actually a very effective way to do that. So what we build is a system where you are going down a track. I'm gesturing with my hands now, but I realize I don't have hands yet in this world. We're working on it. We'll see how we get there. But the idea is that you go down a track. It's sort of a path. You can't really change it because we didn't have a lot of interaction, and part of this, we wanted people to use it inside an MRI so we could watch their brain while it was a research study. So we wanted to see exactly what was going on in their head while they were in the experience. And the idea is you go down a track and you can throw snowballs straight out of the center of the camera, and they kind of arc, and there's penguins and bears and snowmen. The snowmen always amuse me, but they're all throwing snowballs back at you. The snowmen, I always was amused because they're made of snow. So do they get smaller? I don't know. I had a lot of thoughts about that, but we never really implemented that.
Asking the right questions.
But exactly. So yeah, anyway, what we saw is it was simple, it was lighthearted, it was playful, there was no score, there's nothing like that, but the idea was to put you in a cold environment and try to make you believe it a little bit. And what we found through the MRI testing is that it actually worked. People could reduce their pain meds. Some people had a great reduction of pain, and it was one thing that opened my mind up. I make this joke a lot about using your powers for good. And in a way, I wanted to get, when I got away from the military work, I was trying, clearly my powers were not being used for as good as they could have been. The surveillance stuff was one thing, but actively bombing people, I didn't want to have any part of. So the idea to apply my skills in another way, to apply them in a way that would actually help people, was very intriguing. And to actually see the results was amazing. And speaking of the military stuff, we also did one called Iraq World, used for clinical use. And the idea is, you have PTSD from a war zone, that small interactions, small triggers, that could be anything. It could be a door shutting, could be a beep, it could be someone's voice in a particular register. I mean, it's a lot of crazy stuff that triggers it. And what it does is it short circuits your brain. You are instantly, inside your head, you are instantly back in a really bad situation. And you kind of freak out a little bit. You want to get out of there, and you do things that you're not fully in control of because you're pretty much freaking out about it. I know people with PTSD, and they're altered in a way. And the way to get rid of PTSD is to desensitize you by repeated interaction with the stimulus, so that you do it in a safe setting and it becomes something that doesn't trigger, or you recognize it as a trigger when it happens, and you can rationally have control of your body. You don't lose control. And that was something that we were working on a little bit. I don't know that the project was ever fully finished, but we did have some success in training. The idea was that it was going to be for clinicians, so that you were with a therapist at the computer, and you're driving around in a Humvee in an Iraq-looking place, and you come around a corner and a bomb blows up. It's totally random. There's actually bombs everywhere. It's something we built in a system called Virtuals. That was before I was working with Unity directly, and it would have been pretty cool, I think. I should check up on that project actually. I haven't talked to those guys and seen kind of where it went because we went off and worked on some other projects. We did one where we made a large-scale video game in 3D, in active 3D, or passive 3D actually, because we had 2 projectors and polarizers. That taught kids how to brush their teeth better because we shrunk them down and put them inside a mouth, and they had to fight bacteria. I hacked the Wiimotes and made some pretty cool controllers out of them, and also wired them in so they had power and a bunch of stuff. But we had $3 million, I think it was, to build out a full-scale project, and it ran in Seattle at the Pacific Science Center, and it was part of a research study as well to see what kind of lasting effect you could have on health, especially in kids. And the premise behind that for the target and the age range we were hitting is that between 8 and 12 kids, if that's the time to make changes for dental health. And so we were trying to understand what the age range, like what you could do in that age range to affect change. And we had some ideas on it based on a lot of research, and we were working with researchers as well. So we had a brain trust for sure that was helping us. And we built a thing called Attack of the S mutans. And S mutans are this Streptococcus mutans are this particular bacteria that grows in your mouth, and you eat sugar and that sort of thing. So we kind of simplified what it was. The stuff's online. I should have brought a whole list of links to throw up on the board behind me. I didn't think about it. But if you look up attackofthesmutans.com, it's probably still exists. And we had a character, Dentitia, the smart girl who could build shrinking machines and a bunch of other tech, and you basically went inside her mouth and she went with you as a hologram. So that's kind of Inception-like, don't you think? Going inside your own mouth. But you would fight the bacteria and win against giant monsters and biofilms and plaques and stuff like that, and then repair the damage to your tooth. And the thing is, from 10 to 12-year-olds, they freaking loved it. They did great. They played it again and again and again, and we studied up on them months later, and they actually were having an effect. They were thinking about the game. They were brushing their teeth more. They were doing more. And
There's some
that was
images
cool.
of it behind us.
Dentitia. I haven't seen that in a while. Oh, there's the Wiimotes too. Woo! So I don't know if you have mouse control, but if you go over the tabs, like the 3D game, the project, and things like that, it'll open up various things. But yeah, that's the project.
What year was this?
Is that somebody in here
Kind of
with
has a
me?
very 90s feel to it.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you showed up. I could
Yeah,
use
it
some
was
help
much more recent than the 90s, but
These guys suck up sugar like a sponge, and then look what they
Just
do.
that
Yeah.
font,
Pooping out
that
acid
font,
all
and
over the
that
place.
that green gack just makes me think of like Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon, of course. That's a good idea. I like it. Not sure if those
Sean,
guys
we
do
don't
that
actually-
stuff, but-
Sean, we don't actually share the same screen, do we? Each person can scroll down and do their own thing?
Yeah, each person at that point is on their own browser.
I've never pointed it
Ah,
out,
got it. That's why I'm not seeing any change.
So yeah, what were kind of the highlights of the Austin 5 event and SDVR for you, Pete?
That's a pretty good question. That's actually been in my thoughts lately, and I'm still writing up some reports on it for internal distribution. But I think the Austin one's a lot of fun. Actually, I did a VR game jam last year with the same guys. We went up to Boston and Cambridge actually, and did a jam on their early room scale device. They actually had it set up as desk scale at the time because they were transitioning to the Lighthouse secretly. I didn't even know about it back then. And then, of course, this year we had the full kind of dev kit status for the Vive, which is really nice. They have 3 stations. The cool thing is Valve is a block from my office. I bumped into him at lunch one day, and I heard him talking about Unity this and Unity that. Turns out they use Unity all over the place in a large percentage of their demos, and pretty much everything that was shown at GDC for the Vive, all but one, were in Unity. That one holdout was in Source 2, so of course they have their own engine and they're working, but I think they found that Unity even has some advantages over Source 2 because of rapid iteration and kind of the ease of use for VR work. So they use us quite a bit. Plus they're just rad dudes, so we hang out and travel to random cities. We'll probably go to London or something, I think, later this year. They're thinking about some other places to try to get out a little bit more. But as far as the event in Austin, they had 3 bays set up with the room scale set up. So I think it was the safe area was 10 by 10, so a little bit smaller than they had at GDC, but still huge, quite usable. And we had 75 developers. They came from all over. It was a little more pro-oriented rather than enthusiast-oriented. It was a 2-day affair. A couple of guys flew in on my same plane from Uber Entertainment up here in Seattle. They're working on some VR content. They made Planetary Annihilation and some games like that. They got some good press. But yeah, we had 75 devs. They split into approximately 20 teams. I haven't done a final count. I have all the data from the jam. I just don't have a Vive on me right now, so I haven't been able to sort through it all. But they set up, they worked pretty hard for 2 days. I go to game jams and I expect to help out, maybe throw in and write some scripts. But these guys were pretty solid. I really didn't have to do a whole lot. In fact, it was so easy, I got to have my own experiment and play with using the controllers as mirrors to bounce laser beams to destroy attackers from above. Right here. And when I say attackers, I mean I'm a programmer. I do programmer art, so the attackers from above were spheres. I colored them green, much like the S-mutans that were on the sign behind us. And they would slowly converge on you, but the idea was that you had to use 2 hands to aim the lasers, and it was challenging because you could kind of lock on one pretty well, but as soon as you would lock on with one and try to aim the other, the first one would slip. And so using both hands equally, I found a bit of a challenge, more than I expected. Fairly ambidextrous.
2-player possibilities.
Yeah, I think there could be many other ways that it could work for sure.
It's like a portal with mirrors.
In a way, that's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, this was way bare bones. I was just playing with the thing. The funny thing is, I don't know if you guys know Alex Schwartz, but I described a early idea of it to him. He's from Alchemy Labs. They're doing the job simulator for Vive. And I gave it a description, and true Alex fashion, I talked just a sentence or two and said, yeah, I got this idea about using like setting up mirrors and bouncing lasers. And he's like, oh, hey, yeah, I had that idea. So here's my description. And in true Alex fashion, it's something like, yeah, I already did that, and my idea was way better than yours. And here's a complete description of how it works. And sorry about that, buddy.
And here it is.
He's super brilliant with stuff like that. But yeah, the event lasted 2 days. Then on Monday evening we had a show and tell. So at the show and tell we had it was the VR meetup. They had 200 people show up. People were waitlisted. You had one demo. You didn't get to choose it. It was just whatever was next and open. They were cycling the devs through it, and you had approximately 3 minutes in each demo, and
It's
that's
like
all the
there's
time
some
you had.
footage of it on the screen.
Oh, great.
So is it one big room, I guess?
This place was a workspace, like a shared working space called VUCA.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Me? Did you see me
I saw
there?
you I saw you for a second.
I must have been over on the left. But yeah, you can see the Vive bays over here. There's some of the HTC guys. And so, yeah, we had an upstairs area, which was kind of... Let's hit play again.
Yeah, you can replay that, Hayden. Oh, there you are.
Oh yeah, there's my back right there. So I'm talking to Eka from Uber Entertainment. That guy made a plane where you could shrink and grow and grab planes out of the sky. It was pretty cool. I guess they're
Did you,
working on a game that's going to come out.
Did you try Aaron Lemke's thing, the snake thing they made?
I have a copy of it. I didn't get a chance to try it while they were working on it, but I know Aaron pretty well. I'm looking forward to trying that one for sure.
Yeah, I saw the
Like
video they
3D
made. It
snake.
looked pretty sweet. Yeah. There you are again.
Wow, it's kind of cool to see this. There I am. I'm the bald guy with the long beard, by the way, if you don't know what I look like. I don't actually look like a cube.
We should have put a beard on the cube.
Next time.
So yeah, what about SDVR? What were some cool things you saw there?
I guess SDVR was completely different. I haven't really been to a VR specific conference. There are some. I missed SDVR last year, so I was really excited. I heard how good it was, but they had what 300 or 400 people last year.
Yeah, it was way smaller. It was like 300 or 400.
Yeah, Carl was telling me that it was at least 3 times bigger this year. They had 1,200. I think they sold out. That's a lot of people talking about VR, talking about something that isn't even a consumer product yet. I mean, you can't really buy any of these as a general person. And so that's kind of mind-blowing all by itself.
Yeah.
There was a lot of speakers, a lot of great talks. I went to a lot of the talks on Monday, which was really exciting. Ah, excellent. More video.
Did you try did we put you in the Snowball Experience, Pete, at our booth?
Yeah, I totally was ducking and shooting and hiding and did pretty well, actually. Oh, there's you guys talking to Todd. Todd used to be with Unity, but he's out doing VR stuff now here in Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as SVVR, just seeing the expo and seeing a lot, I knew a lot of the people there because I make a point to travel and try to meet people and see what's going on, try to understand the industry and understand our place in it. And so seeing all the headsets and things like that was really nice. I did meet a few new people, which was really cool. But I went primarily for the talks. I wanted to see what people were up to. I wanted to see some of the thinking. I think the thinking is still kind of where it's. I think the thinking is still kind of where it's at right now. I just totally let my finger off the button. I wanted to hear what people are talking about. Check out.
What do you mean by that? The thinking is where it is right now.
Well, I don't think we're there hardware-wise. I mean, we still got a long ways to go, I guess, hardware-wise. So the thoughts on it are the driving motivation. There's not sales driving it. There's not differentiation in models. I mean, there is, but there's a lot of similarities across the board. So I think once we have more players in the field and once we have more product and the dollar is driving production a little bit more, until then, I think the thinking is the main motivation and the main driving force. And what's really cool is to see how widespread it is and kind of how all over the place the VR landscape is. One of my favorite talks was the guys from Dreamworks, which I got to meet and talk to in great detail over dinner. And this guy, Brad Herman from the Dream Lab at Dreamworks, he just blew me away in all of his thinking and his ideas. And I'm mostly in video games right now, but I got a fresh injection of awesome ideas and things that I want to try because he's focused on the experience from a different angle. I also got to talk to more of the people in the pain control area, and I try to keep up with that as well because I think that that's a really critical use of this technology. Games are cool, and they're going to be a lot of money there, but I'm much more excited about other aspects of VR, especially the aspects we haven't even begun to dream of yet. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's reflected in the panels too. Like, most of the questions are about, like, what's it gonna look like in a year or two, and it's just heavy, speculation for the most part in a lot of the questions.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of speculation, but the interesting thing is there's some clear trends that have evolved. It's exciting to see that this year we're going to have the Vive for sale. Gear VR, I guess, is official right now. We'll have the CV1, the Oculus CV1, early next year. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the guys coming out in the middle. I'm a big fan of Merge VR and their headset that supports whatever phone you have. I think platforms like that are going to be really nice and help get the industry moving. But it's a chicken egg problem, you know. Getting the hardware out there is one thing. You got to have content. I'm a content fan, and so the thinking is driving the content creation right now, and that's going to drive sales later. And as far as I can tell, anyway.
Actually, I'll open it up to the anybody have a question before I jump in with more?
Yeah, Pete. There you go. To your right.
Howdy.
I'm a disabled vet from Vietnam War vet. I'd like to talk to you after this about that pain control gel.
Yeah. I think I'd be happy to talk to you. Maybe we can I can drop you an email after this talk, and we can talk in the real world a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be ideal, just so I can address it correctly.
I guess another question I had was what percent of the... Oh, sorry, did somebody else want to hop in there?
Go ahead.
I was just wondering what percent of... You said you guys are kind of the demo team. What percent of those demos are VR at this point?
So I've got one demo I actually worked on last year. I heard someone talking about Tesseracts and stuff earlier, so I have his Hypercube demo. I'm totally going to spit out on the Asset Store soon. My artist is finishing up the art on it right now. It's a small thing, but it's an example of how to work with Vive, how to work with the Oculus as well. But also, it's a pretty badass rotating Hypercube that I made entirely in script. So I'm very proud of that because I love Hypercubes. That's only one thing, and it's going to come out real soon. We are working on a large-scale project. Unfortunately, I can't really reveal any details right now. This is one of those areas that we've got a big showpiece that we're going to do probably early next year. So we're ramping up for it now. It takes months and months and months, but this is one of the reasons that we're hiring out right now and trying to build up our team. We're projecting needing 20 people on this project here in the next few months, just based on number of projections that we're doing. We've seen the bar. The high bar for us is the Portal demo, the robot repair demo that Valve did in Source 2. The Unity stuff is great, but the Portal stuff, the Source 2 stuff, is just that much nicer. The quality level, the attention to detail is incredible. So watch this space, as they say. We've got something really big coming, and that's part of why we're growing and doing what we're doing. I can't really reveal any details further than that. In fact, that might be too much. I'll have to kill all of you. Oh man, that one was so cool. That was it's so great to see it again. I wanted to stay in that world forever. Part of the fun thing about the access that I have to Valve, I basically get to go and have it sit over there and work with them. They keep a desk open, which is really cool. And as much as of a professional as I am, I'm also a huge fanboy. So just walking around the offices there is mind-blowing. Because the funny thing is, this thing we're seeing in the video, they almost have stuff like that in the offices, just kind of in the hallways, which is pretty badass.
My God, what sort of system were they running that on? That looks like Titan-worthy.
They use 980s across the board. They use whatever the latest Intel processor is. So the funny thing is, when they gave me a Vive, they also gave me one of their boxes that they built, which is by far the most powerful machine in the entire company of Unity now. It's at my desk. I didn't give that away. I had to give the Vive to Boston so they could work on integration work, but what I had to, they didn't know about the computer, so I totally saved it for myself. It's amazing. But yeah, it's pretty cool what they can do with that. Their tech is looking really good, and the quality level. I mean, they're Valve. Come on, they have to be amazing at that level. I mean, they build entire worlds that we dream of, and so to even be in there was really cool. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll give you a little more detail. Did you guys do the? Did you do the Vive demos? Did you see that Portal thing?
No, I still haven't tried it. I don't know if anyone here has.
Okay, so I've tried it, and I'd like to describe it. You saw the video of it, but what you don't understand when you're doing it is the building that you're in is a room. It looks kind of like a waiting room outside, as you saw in the video, and there's a building or a room inside, and there's coffee mugs around and things like that. There's this set of drawers on the wall that they want you to open to kind of test out the hand controllers, and there's always this voiceover, the classic Portal-esque voiceover where they're helping you through and talking to you, but they're very derisive at the same time, and it's hilarious to kind of listen. So they want you to open some drawers and look for a tool, and you open the wrong drawer, and then you open this other drawer, and there's stuff in there, and then you open the third drawer, and there's a tiny little community of paper people in there from the interstitial videos that they do in Portal. And when you shut the drawer, they commence incineration, and so they burn it, and you hear them screaming, which is hilarious all by itself. Very demented and dark, but totally funny. And then you go over and pull a lever, and the door opens, and then there's a robot out in the waiting room. He's sparking, and he can barely walk. And the funny thing is, you don't have to get out of his way at all. You don't. You can just stand there in his way, because you're in the room that you're in. As far as you can tell, you can move around freely and all of it. But you move out of the way. You get up back on the wall because you don't want to trip him. Like, you feel for this guy, he's pretty broken down, which is really amazing. He's a freaking robot that I saw in VR, and I felt bad for him. Like, that's kind of mind blowing all by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he comes in, you pull another lever, and he, separates out, as you guys saw in that video. All of his pieces come open, and you kind of roll through some wheels, but then you hear the Gladys voice, and she says things like, "Oh, you're not doing very well. You gotta go over here and fix the thing." And she starts talking faster and faster. Like, there's no way you're ever going to complete the task at hand. You cannot repair this robot. But it's hilarious because she'll say things like, or kind of the automated Portal voice, I guess, is what it is, and it'll say things like, "Time is no worry. Take all the time you need. You have 15 seconds." And take all the time you need. You have 5 seconds, and eventually, when the timer runs out, all the pieces just fall on the ground and they bounce everywhere, and it's the most convincing physics realization that I've seen, because it just, I kind of wanted to jump out of the way, and I felt even worse because now this robot is in 10,000 pieces. I'm not even joking when I say 10,000, like, so many parts visible on screen, which was really cool.
Oh, man.
The quality was incredible. I felt like I could have leaned into any of the screws and seen the threads. I probably can, because that's the kind of guys that Valve hires and works on these projects. So that was really cool. But then the best part is the walls get ripped out. You realize that you're actually in the big warehouse area in Portal. Gladys comes in and tells you what a bad job you did, and, "Oh, by the way, I thought you were a robot. You're actually a human. How did you get in here?" Well, we'll get you shuffled right out of here real soon. And, it takes on an ominous tone, as Gladys is really good at. But the funny thing is, Gladys is huge. You don't get the sense when you're playing it on the flat screen, but the head of Gladys comes right up in your face, and she's massive. She's maybe 5 feet tall, like from top to bottom. She's kind of narrow, but the kind of curvy piece that makes her head is quite tall and quite long. And there's this grid of LEDs, the kind of light or eye that she has looking right at me. And it's right up in my face. And it's another time that you just back right up on the wall, because it's kind of terrifying. And she's huge. But all the walls are getting taken apart as well, so you don't want to step too far. The floor gets kind of dissolved away with all the panels the way they do it. And it's a little interesting, and then it kind of ends. So it's a really cool demo. If you guys get a chance, or as stuff is available, keep your eyes out, because I don't know what their plans are with that, but man, I pray that we get a VR version of Portal or something like that. That would be so badass. I can't,
Oh yeah,
like,
that's
that's one of the
definitely
ones I've
gotta
been dreaming
happen.
of. So yeah, from our point of view, that's the high bar. That's the greatest thing I've seen yet in VR, and I've seen some really cool stuff. But as far as quality and attention to detail and believability of another world, like a fully realized feeling world, that's the high bar. So that's what we're aiming for, stuff like that.
That's incredible. I love to hear that you guys are just ramping up for something of that quality. That makes me feel good. Null, did you have a question?
Actually, it was. I had two. They kind of worked together. It was something about what you mentioned with the money leading the way for this, and you were kind of looking forward to that happening. And it seems to me that money has been what's been holding this entire industry back. If not for kind of the financial setback that a system that can run these things actually costs, I think it would be much more prevalent. I think that was kind of the message that was kind of put across when Google put out that cardboard to kind of compete with other headset things, was that, you know, VR was just, a lot of it was just unnecessary. I mean, most of the cost of the headset, all you needed was the lenses, but it seems like the money has been holding it back. So my question is this, you know, seeing that money has been kind of guiding it, is that really what we want to continue doing in this, or are there things we're doing to try and make this a more free and open kind of, I don't want to, workspace or a play area, whatever you want to consider it, are there things we're doing to make this free and open so that it can grow on its own? Because it seems like the money is holding it back, because I think we all have seen the potentials of VR and the potentials of all these worlds that we create in here, and it's really actually surprising to me that it's not moving more quickly and that there's not a faster adoption of it, considering, you know, the kinds of things that it surpasses. I mean, there's people in financial situations that can't even afford a TV, but if they have a headset, they could have the biggest TV they've ever seen. Not only that, they can have a computer, they can have all these things, and it doesn't have to cost that much. It seems like the money is holding it back because all those things cost money that it makes not worthwhile anymore. You don't need to buy a big TV anymore.
What's the question?
Sorry, I kept going. The question is, what are we doing to make this a more free and open platform? What are you doing at Unity with your position to ensure that it continues to grow?
That's a really good question, and I think that that's one of the more pertinent questions right now. When I talk about money, I'm talking not about consumer levels of money. I'm talking about big levels of money. The Vive is by far the best VR experience I've had in my life, and I've tried pretty much everything out there, and I will continue to try it. But the thing is, they were working for 3 years. They have quite a large team of superstars working on it. They've been sinking millions and millions and millions into the development on this. So it takes a lot of that development to take it to the next level. There is the Cardboard Initiative, and there's the work like OSVR that I think is also very critical. But there's different levels, you know. So there is Cardboard, and it's VR, but there's a big difference between a Cardboard app and a Vive app. The level of quality, I mean, there's like several orders of magnitude almost, and it becomes down to things like frame rate, being able to hold a very high frame rate, have very low latency, do all the stuff required for presence, have good quality tracking. It is expensive. It's certainly expensive now. It's not going to be mainline consumer this year. It's going to be high end gamer type stuff this year when the headsets come out, at least the high end stuff. Because it's going to require a very expensive machine. I mean, I'm sitting right now connected to a probably almost $3,000 machine, and with what, $350 headset on, and a moderate set of earphones. It takes a lot right now. So that's kind of where the money thing is, and the other part of the money thing is what drives investment and drives the quality of stuff on the big end isn't necessarily the consumers. From the consumer point of view, it seems like consumers have all the power, but the reality is the VCs are the big initial drivers of this. So the great thing is, in the last year, VCs have been diving in like crazy on VR. They're starting to see the truth. They're starting to see the belief in the industry that this is really the next big thing. But you have to consider that the level of change that's going on right now in VR industry wide is akin to the level of change that was required to take video games into 3D when things like Doom and Quake first came out, and the push to the FPS and true 3D, not a representation of 3D, but it was really 2D. It took graphics and it took quality of games really far, but it also required a build out of a lot of hardware. NVIDIA is what NVIDIA is today because of that revolution in gaming. And what we're looking at right now, and others, of course, not just NVIDIA, but what we're looking at now is the next wave of that. So screen tech is going to advance rapidly, I think, soon. The power of graphics rendering cards to render specific for VR and gain additional performance is happening right now. I've had personal meetings with NVIDIA and Intel over exactly what their plans are regarding VR, and they're on it. They're working on it. But these are the kind of things that take millions to turn the big ships and to focus and get the research done. So that's all a big part of it. And when I was talking about money earlier, I think I was thinking more on that end of things. There is, of course, the need for content so that consumers will buy VR headsets and VR games and VR entertainment and movies and all that sort of thing. And I totally agree that it's going to have to trickle down, as it were. I kind of hate that phrase, trickle down, but in a way, the high-end people, like I don't expect more than 5% of gamers to get into VR this year. I think the people in this room are a very select group for VR, but in the real world, and I talk to a lot of people in the real world, there's a lot of people that have no clue what's going on in VR. As much hype as there is around it, there's still very a large number of gamers, like what people that would consider themselves pretty hardcore gamers, don't really keep up with it. There's a lot that do, but there's also still a lot that don't. So there's a lot of barriers to overcome. People don't see the belief for it, and they've been burned by 3D TVs. They've been burned by 3D movies. There's a few good ones, but most of them suck, right? So why do you spend the extra money to go to the 3D movie? In the same way, it's going to be out there for VR. If it's not amazing, people aren't going to get into it in the same way. That's kind of a rambly bit on money, but the nice thing is when VCs get into it and spur investments in the technology and in the ideas, and then more content is created and VR game studios pop up, and there's several of those now, then that makes stuff that people want to buy, and the more people buy it, because it's profit driven, the more people can do it, and the more and more ability we're going to have, and the more and more research is going to go into making it faster and better. I'm actually really excited about things like Cardboard and the very low cost initiative in VR and OS VR and things like that. The reason I'm excited is because, I mean, clearly I'm not the only guy in this room that's read Ready Player One. I'm pretty safe in that assumption, even though none of us have talked about it. But someone keeps kissing at me, and so that's a good one to kiss over, I think.
Just how we show love for a certain topic.
But one of the things in Ready Player One that I really loved was the idea of going to school in VR and having kids in disadvantaged areas that didn't have access to good education, being able to gain an education that they never would have otherwise. I mean, what was depicted in the book was an extreme example of that, but kind of follow it to the conclusion sort of thing. But we have real problems now, and I think that VR for education is an increasingly important topic. In fact, one of my favorite topics that I'm interested in. I come out of academia, I come out of teaching, I taught in college and things like that. So I want to grow education, and I want to use these technologies to help with that. It's not just about video games. As for what we're doing at Unity to help with that, well, I've been pushing, and many of us in the company have been pushing for a long time to make sure that the differences between professional and free or personal edition, as we're calling it now, were equal across the board. So last year, you could not do VR in the free version, not really. You didn't have render textures, which are critical, and you didn't have plugins, which are critical. So we fixed that. The free version now has all the same stuff that the pro version does, all the stuff you need to do VR. There is some snafu on the splash screens, I guess, still, but we're still working on that. That's a minor issue at this point. So the fact that it took $1,500 last year for a pro license to build for VR and now takes zero, I think is a testament to some of the stuff that we're doing. But above and beyond that, in 5.1, which is in release candidate status right now, it's coming out real soon, we're going to have the first wave of VR optimizations to make the rendering pipeline shorter so that and more focused on VR. And what that'll do is make it so that maybe your computer with a 750 could run it versus a 980. Maybe your computer with a 670 could run some of the content instead of one with the 980. So your older machines will be able to work in a way, and we're going to keep pushing on that. 5.2 has other optimizations planned, but the idea is to optimize as much as you can. VR is crazy because if you look at something that's pumping 90 frames a second, first of all, that's a really high frame rate compared to most video games already. Most are like at 60. So we're already pumping that, but we're pumping a lot more pixels, and we're basically doing 4 times the work while we're doing it because of the way all the data is copied through memory and render textures and things like that. It may seem like VR is a trivial experience because you've seen it work on a phone, but the reality is with all of the range of it and all of the various things that's going on with it, it's actually still a very challenging problem that we're all working on daily. And I think Unity is in a lucky place. We can be part of the solution, and we're working on being part of the solution. And part of that is just making all this stuff run better so that you can run it on lower end hardware. It's still going to be a niche thing for a while. I mean, it's not going to be everywhere. Not this year. It's not going to be everywhere next year. But maybe when you start thinking where it could be in 5 years, it could be everywhere in 5 years, I think. Honestly, in 10 years, we're probably all going to be walking down the street with this stuff strapped to our face 24 hours a day. I welcome that world. It's going to be crazy, but I'm looking forward to crazy stuff like that. But we're not there yet. We have things like HoloLens that are a step in that direction, but it's not ready for prime time yet either. So I don't know. I guess that's my answer. Does that make sense? Do you have a follow-up to that? Well, I see a lot of questions about just API issues. I'm a programmer, so I get a lot of that. We definitely get a lot of lighting questions and light bake issues and things like that. I worked, so you guys probably saw that game Republic was released for PC by a company called Convrge. They're actually they live with us basically. Their office is in a large room that we rent out to them in our Seattle office currently. And myself and my partner on the team, Bo Folsom, he's an artist, a technical artist. We spent quite a bit of time working with those guys, trying to get their game up to date and teaching everything that we knew about the new lighting system. This was all last year. This was all in, 5.0 Alpha 6 and 5.0 Alpha 20 and things like that. I mean, there was a lot of alphas before we got to beta, and then there was a lot of betas before we even got to release candidates. So we were working on 5 solidly for about a year. My team was active in it all the time. So part of it is getting up to date with the techniques so that we can train others, and then helping studios kind of fix some of their issues and know about the new stuff, the stuff they need to know about to make the highest quality games. Actually, Convrge is one of the best examples recently because we did spend so much time working with them on the issues that they were having. So light baking, that's always huge, and it's still an ongoing issue. 5's cool. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do, but the light bakes are not as good as they could be.
It's almost impossible.
I've heard that from several people, and I don't disagree with you on that. In fact, my team mostly, because of the quality of demos we do, we spend a lot of time doing things in HDR textures and deferred linear, which gives us a certain quality look that we're going for. But we're always trying to push the envelope, and we haven't been able to push it too hard on the light baking. We've had problems ourselves. So what we do
Nothing
is we
personal,
run with
but
a lot
I
of
hate it.
real time. Well, I hope it's getting better. I actually kind of hated it at first too, but there's a lot to like about it once you get into it deeply. Part of what my team does is we're the artists and people in the company. You might think that everyone inside Unity uses the engine all the time, but these are guys that are really deep on graphics algorithms, for instance, or AI systems or something like that. So they get the support in there and they do basic testing. But they don't do the level of testing that you guys are doing. They don't do the level of testing that my team does. So part of my job is to beat the crap out of the engine and try to make something that no one's ever made before and push it as hard as I can, and then schedule a whole lot of Skype calls and a whole lot of emails and meetings and travel and things like that, just so we can show that the first ways that things happen are not always the right ways, and that things have to change. I mean, it's an art tool, right? Artists should be able to use it. And that's kind of where we come from. So part of what we do is we kind of yell at people internally until they listen, so that we can make the engine better. I don't know, we touch a lot of different areas, and I got to say lighting is the #1 area that we get asked questions on. I think almost for obvious reasons to the crowd here. But also just kind of working with the engine at large, working with prefabs and all the awesome things that prefabs give you, and also the terrible crushing defeat you feel when you hit the nested prefabs issue. So, how do you work around that? How do you build systems into the engine using editor scripts? I do a lot of that with the more AAA style companies, because what they want to do is they want to build systems that will build their game, not necessarily hand touch all the details. So building out those systems is an area that I deal with quite a bit. And I even have some examples that are going to hit the asset store soon that will hopefully show you, you can download a little package and get a demo project and show you how to approach doing work like this. We've got one that just this kind of sci-fi tunnels thing that we're coming out with real soon. Evangelists are using it right now for training, but we're going to put it out on the store like any day now. I'm surprised it hasn't made it to the store already, honestly. But I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, is there any particular areas you guys have problems with that you'd like to just throw out? I don't know if I got time to go into deep debugging, but it's anything besides lighting that's a real bugaboo for anybody?